Okay, next I'm going to start by drawing a landscape. In this case, when we draw a landscape inside of Illustrator, I'm going to use primarily the pen tool as well as some simple shapes. One of the things is once I start getting a little bit more complex drawings, I'm going to start using what's called the layer window. And if you do not see the layer window, you can bring it up by going under Window, Layers, Window, Layers. It might be jammed way over here in the corner somewhere. If it's jammed over here, you can click on it and pull it out. To pull it out, you put your name on top, or you put your cursor on top of the word layers, and you can just drag it out. Okay, so have the layers window open as well as the pen tool. And we don't need to have the pen tool open the whole time, so let's close that for now. And we don't even need the layers window the whole time. We're going to actually move it down here in the corner somewhere, but keep it open. The first thing I'm going to do when I do my landscape is I'm going to use just a plain rectangle. That is this rectangle that we have right here. And I'm going to draw it halfway down the page, and then from halfway down the page to the bottom, we'll draw another rectangle. So again, I'm going to use the rectangle tool. I'm going to put my cursor along the edges here, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that about halfway, it doesn't have to be perfect, down the page. Then I'm going to go down to the very bottom, and I'm going to draw another rectangle kind of up halfway through the other half of the page. And so I have two rectangles on top of each other. Okay, so we're going to color these two rectangles. The bottom one will be like a green grass, and the top one will be like a blue sky. To do that, I'm going to use the black selection tool. I'm going to click inside the fill color that I have here. For the bottom one is still selected. If it's not selected on yours, you can click off, click on, click off, click on, click off, click on. Do you notice how when I click off, I click outside the area? When I click the bottom one, I'm going to double click on the rectangle, and I'm going to give it a color. Remember the triangle that we were using in the last lesson? And then I can choose a color. I'm going to use a green grass kind of color here, dark green. There's a green grass. Don't worry, it'll look like green grass in a little bit. Next, for the sky, I'm going to use actually, so I'm going to click up the rectangle above here. For this one, I'm going to do a gradient. Now, gradients are kind of goofy inside of Illustrator. I don't know why they make them so kind of difficult to do, but the gradient option is over here in the toolbar underneath where the color swatches are. There is a fill right here is the fill color. The middle one's gradient, and the end one is no. So there's like these little icons right below the color swatches. The middle one is a gradient, and if I click on it, you notice it gives me a gradient which is black to white. Of course, I don't want black to white. I want to have a nice blue, light blue to a dark blue or something like that. To do that, you'll notice after I clicked on the option here underneath the color swatches, it actually pops up this gradient window. Okay, so if I click on the colors, you'll notice it just gives me black. And what are the colors? Let me move this gradient window out so you can see it. And let me close this over here. So here's the gradient window that tells us the actual gradient color. The problem is these two little rectangles down here, and each one of these rectangles represents the gradient. And you'll notice as I move it around, it changes the gradient. Okay. If you add an extra dot down here and you really didn't want to do that, you can click on your little rectangle and drag straight down and it'll go away. So if you add an extra one and you didn't want to do that, you can click on it and drag straight down and it'll go away. The problem is that Illustrator thinks that you just want a black to white gradient, and we don't want just a black to white. We want to make a color one. To do the color one, there's a couple different ways to add a color gradient. One is that you can bring up the color swatches, if I can find them. They're under color. And no, that's not swatches. How about this one? There we go, swatches. It's kind of swatches. So we can bring up the color swatches. Let me hide the symbols here. And we can drag the color swatch into one of these little, so I'm going to drag a blue color into right on top of one of the little rectangles here, and you'll notice it comes into play. Again, if you want to add a color from the color swatches to your gradient, you could take one of the colors from the color swatches and drag it from here on top of one of your rectangles here. They're kind of close. Let's do a darker blue. I'm going to grab this really dark blue over here and drag it right on top of my color swatch. That's probably the quickest and easiest way to do it. Again, it's just to grab one of these colors and drag right on top of the icon. Once I have it on top of the icon, you'll notice that the blue is dark over here and it's light over here. I really don't want it that way. I want to have like light at the top and dark at the bottom. To do that, we can adjust where the gradient is and locate it on the screen by using the gradient tool over here in the toolbar. There is one called the gradient tool, and if I click on it, it'll give me an arm, like a little line that goes across my gradient here. Or I can just simply drag a line. So if I click on the gradient tool that's over here in the toolbar, I can drag straight down with a line. If you hold the shift key down, it'll make a straight line, and you'll notice that you can adjust it. You can adjust it going wherever you want. You can see you can try different kinds of gradients. You can actually add more colors to your gradient, but I'm just going to make a straight line that goes from top to bottom. That gives me sort of the sunset kind of, I don't know, kind of a dark to a light. You could do the same thing with the green. I'm not going to do that, but you could do, you know, a dark green to a light green and things like that, practicing your gradients. In this case, I'm going to move on. Again, I'm going to bring up my layer window, and inside my layer window, I'm going to start with a new layer. So this is kind of my background here, and I'm going to hide my gradients for now. Hide my color swatches. Right now I have one layer, and I'm going to double click on the layer right there twice, and I'm going to call it background. It should open up so that you can change the name. Then I'm going to hit OK. Next, I'm going to lock this layer so I don't mess it up. How do I lock a layer inside of Illustrator? Is inside the layer window, and if you don't see layer window, it's always under window layer. All these pop-up menus are under there. You can click under next to where the eyeball hides and shows, just like it does in Photoshop. In this case, I'm going to show it, and then right next to the little eyeball there is a lock feature, which makes it, the beauty of that is I can't mess the background up. Okay. Then to make a new layer so that we can draw over top of it, we're going to click next to this little trash can in the layer window. There's like a new layer option right here. So if I click on it, it'll make a new layer for me. So as I start working inside of Illustrator, you'll notice I have a whole bunch of layers with a whole bunch of different things in them. In this case, I'm going to make a mountain. We have already practiced using the pen tool when we were making our numbers. So in this case, I'm going to use the pen tool to draw a mountain. To do that, I'm going to click on the pen tool. I'm going to change my color back to a solid color. Once I click on the solid option here, it gives me kind of a dark blue, and I don't want a dark blue mountain. I want to make kind of a brown mountain maybe. I'm going to come over to the color option. If you don't see the color options pop up when you click on the color option, you can always go under window, color, and it should pop up. In this case, I'm going to make, what do we want? Brown mountains. How about brown mountains for now? We can always change the color later. So I'm going to use the pen tool, change the color. There's a couple different places you can change color. And then I'm just going to click kind of triangle, kind of where the path starts, where the green and the blue kind of meet. I'm going to click, 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 click. Just kind of making mountains, small ones, big ones. They don't have to be super tall. And then whenever you're done, you can always go back to the very beginning to complete your path. So there's one mountain there. If I want to draw another one over top of it, maybe a little bit closer kind of mountains, one thing you might want to do is deselect first. And then, so again, to deselect, use a black arrow and just click outside the area. So it's not too bad. Again, you can use your white selection tool and move your points around if you want. Remember the points we were moving around before? So we got kind of a mountain kind of look right there. To give our mountains kind of a 3D look, what I tend to do is make a kind of a different color on the side of the mountain. To do that, I'm going to lock this again, this layer, and I'm going to make another new layer. Remember the layer window that we were looking at before? And the reason why is I don't want to mess with this mountain the way I have it right now. I'm going to leave it as it is, and probably the easiest way not to draw something over top of another object without it trying to attach it to the object is to just make a new layer, lock it, and then make a new layer. Now I'm going to draw kind of a triangle shape on the side of each one of these mountains. To draw a triangle shape, I'm going to use again the pen tool, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker this time, a little bit darker brown. If I can find it. Or you could do a lighter brown too if you want to make a highlight that way. It's either darker or lighter. Once I get my color, then I can draw a shape on the side of my mountain like that. Draw a shape. And of course this one's kind of skinny. Always go back to the very first point you make. Just drawing little triangles on the side of my mountain here. And just drawing little triangles. on the side of the mountain. 3 points each. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess it's 4 points, but it's really 3 because you're going back to the first point. There we go. Almost done here. And you'll notice, I'll just do a real skinny one down here. When you do that, just by putting a separate color on there, it gives it more of a three-dimensional look. It looks more like a mountain, doesn't it? Just by putting a little bit of color on the side of the hill there. All it is putting a different color on the side of the mountain there. And then, wow. Let's do one more fun thing to this mountain. Let's use the pen tool. And actually, let's pause this movie and we'll start again.